Hello. In one of my previous videos I've assumed that each elementary particle is actually a discrete machine that consists of discrete pieces. E equals reduced Planck's constant multiplied by W. W according to that assumption is not an angular frequency, but the amount of discrete pieces in particle. Reduced Planck's constant according to that assumption is not a quantum of action, but a quantum of energy instead. A quantum of energy that causes a quantum of action. Each discrete piece of particle stores one of 6 possible directions in space: left, right, up, down, forward, back, and moves all the particle in corresponding direction of space with constant momentary speed in infinite loop. Link to that video is in the upper right corner now. Please watch it if you want to understand the assumption better. Today I will explain what is momentum according to this model. Let's agree that mass of one discrete piece of matter is 1m. If particle consists of n discrete pieces, then its mass equals n multiplied by m. Let's agree that length of one discrete moment of time is 1t. Please note that all particles' discrete pieces are used as movement directions one by one in infinite loop. Therefore, if particle consists of n discrete pieces, n multiplied by t time needed to execute all its states one by one. So mass of a particle and time needed for one full cycle are connected in this model. Imagine that particle state consists of 2 discrete pieces, one direction right and one direction left. In this case, particle moves right and left in infinite loop and as a result stays wherever it was initially. Its absolute speed v equals 0. Its total mass equals 2m. One full cycle takes 2t of time. Imagine that particle state consists of one discrete piece with direction right. Its total mass equals 1m. One full cycle takes 1t of time. In this case, particle always moves right with the maximum possible speed. Let's call that speed a. Imagine that particle state consists of 3 discrete pieces, 2 directions right and 1 direction left. In this case, particle moves right, right, left, right, right, left, and so on. It moves right on average, but not with the maximum possible speed, but only with 1/3 of it. Its absolute speed v equals a divided by 3. Its total mass equals 3m. One full cycle takes 3t of time. Imagine that particle state consists of 5 discrete pieces, 3 directions right and 2 directions left. In this case, particle moves right, 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 left, left, right, 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 left, left, and so on. Its absolute speed v equals a divided by 5. Its total mass equals 5m. One full cycle takes 5t of time. Let's investigate what momentum p equals v multiplied by m represents in this case. In the first case, the absolute speed of particle is 0, therefore the value of momentum is 0. In the other 3 cases, the value of momentum equals 1am. As you can see, the value of momentum does not change as we add a pair of discrete pieces with opposite directions. Within the described model, we can view particle speed as the probability of movement. For example, if we know that particle consists of 50 directions left and 70 directions right, we know that out of 70 directions right, 50 directions right will be used to cancel 50 directions left and only 20 directions right will be used for actual movement. So to get the average speed, we divide 20 moments of time when particle moves right, by time needed for one full cycle over all discrete pieces of the particle. 70 plus 50 equals 120t. So particle's average speed equals 20 divided by 120 equals 1/6 of I, where a is the maximum possible speed. Momentum p equals mv equals 1/6 multiplied by 120 equals 20 am. We divided 20 discrete pieces by time needed for one cycle and then multiplied it by total mass. As I've told earlier, those two are equal numerically, therefore time needed for one cycle and total mass numerically cancel each other. Therefore the momentum of a particle depends on the amount of discrete pieces in a particle that represent movement of the particle, in our case it's 20 discrete pieces, and does not depend on anything else. Let's separate all the mass of the particle into two groups, m0 and m1. Let's put all the discrete pieces that represent movement to m1 and the rest to m0. In our case m1 equals 20 m. m0 equals 100 m. We can also name those groups of discrete pieces movement mass m1 and rest mass m0. I should remind you that according to currently accepted physics, particle has property rest mass m0. But there is no property movement mass m1. There is only momentum. According to modern physics, every particle has rest mass m0 and momentum p, and no any movement mass. At the same time, they do not explain what is momentum, why anything moves anywhere at all. According to the model I describe, momentum is just a measure of mass of the particle that represents its movement. A measure of mass multiplied by the maximum speed. P equals m1a, where a is the maximum possible speed of movement. Why momentum is conserved? Because mass is conserved. When we merge two particles into one, we get a new particle that includes all discrete pieces of both particles. If two particles move in the same direction, the resulting particle will have movement mass that is equal to the sum of particles' movement masses. All other mass is rest mass of the particle. If two particles move in opposite directions, the resulting particle will have movement mass that is equal to the difference of particles' movement masses. All other mass is rest mass of the particle. In general case, we have 6 types of mass in the particle: right, left, up, down, forward, back. To describe particles' momentum, we need to build a 3-dimensional vector: right minus left, up minus down, forward minus back. Total mass of the particle will be m equals right plus left plus up plus down plus forward plus back. The speed of movement along each axis will be speed by x equals right minus left divided by m multiplied by a. Speed by y equals up minus down divided by m multiplied by a. Speed by z equals forward minus back divided by m multiplied by a. Why? Because m moments of time are spent for one cycle, and during that cycle only right minus left, up minus down, forward minus back steps are made along each axis. Momentum along each axis will be x equals right minus left, am. Y equals up minus down, am. Z equals forward minus back, am. Absolute value of momentum represents movement mass along each axis. Sign represents the direction of movement along corresponding axis. When we merge two particles into one, we get a new particle that includes all discrete pieces of both particles. Therefore, to find the momentum of new particle, we have to find the sum of momentums of original particles. Why we can do that? Because all their discrete pieces will be merged, and therefore vector sum can be used. Please see details on the screen now. Please note that instead of merging two particles into one, we could rearrange discrete pieces between the particles, and each of them would have the same speed as the merged particle. For example, one particle with 4 directions right and 2 directions left has the same speed, total momentum, total mass as a system of two particles with 2 directions right and 1 direction left each. So what, someone would ask, what all of that has to do with the real world? Well, actually in the real world, in real physics, one of the most fundamental principles, conservation of momentum in Newtonian mechanics, works just the same way. Our real world behaves as if it works according to the described model. Why would that be the case? Maybe because it's true that we live in a discrete 3D grid, that particles move in one of 6 possible directions, that mass can be separated into rest mass and movement mass. What other explanation could there be? Modern physicists do not have any explanation, and I'm not sure they need one. You are expected to remember that momentum is conserved, and that's it. Nobody expects you to understand the deeper rules of reality as if they just don't exist. No any extra efforts are expected from anybody. Just repeat the textbook. But why should that be the case? Here are those deeper rules. By the way, in one of my future videos I will show that a direct connection might exist between the movement mass and the de Broglie wavelength, between the rest mass and the Compton wavelength. I will also explain why I call the amount of discrete pieces and particle mass and not energy. Please note that I've already had a video about movement mass. Link to that video is in the upper right corner now. It includes general ideas and arguments, but does not include the details I've provided today. I will explain what is the connection between the maximum speed A and the speed of light C in one of my future videos. Actually, I've already provided some information on that in one of my previous videos. Link to that video is in the upper right corner now. Just to sum up, assuming that all matter consists of discrete pieces and moves with constant speed in one of 6 possible directions perfectly explains rest mass, momentum. You don't have to create different entities for each special case. The behavior of real matter just emerges from very simple rules. In this video I've described how conservation of momentum emerges. Earlier I've explained circular motion, inertia, Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, Bell inequalities, Lorentz transformations and other stuff. Can it be just a coincidence that so simple assumption explains so much? As they say, if it looks like a duck, swims like a duck, and quacks like a duck, then it probably is a duck. What else should I say? What else should I do? Do you need a miracle? Here it is. This world is simple and beautiful. Seems like I definitely need a miracle. I need to be taken seriously. Even though I'm just a no-name from internet. Thank you for your attention.